Hello, everyone. Today is a special day.
Oh, yes, it is.
Oh my goodness, does everyone remember my clone? How long has it been?
Since you tried to kill me?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, it was you. You drank my blood.
I would remember that. Or if there were any witnesses. Were there?
My lawyers have advised me to save it for the lawsuit.
Oh, lawyers, you say. Can we discuss this later? I'm actually in the middle of shooting a show.
That's actually why I'm here. I would consider not filing a suit if you would allow me to co-host the show.
You still want to do that?
Yes.
Fine. Next week you can.
Oh no, I mean right now.
Well, this week is one of Magic's original 25 artists, Brian Snoddy, so.
Great, I can intro him. Do we have a script? Oh, you use a teleprompter. I can't really see it at this angle. Move a little? Oh, no. That's terrible. Why don't we get to the interview and we can rewrite the script? Thank you for taking the time to join me today.
Hello there, Aaron. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so first thing that I'm curious about, you being one of the original Magic artists, is when did you become aware of the madness that was Magic happening? When did the fever hit you? Do you remember what you were doing or where you were?
Yes, it probably wasn't until almost a full year that I realized that Magic was a pretty darn big deal. It was probably right after Arabian Nights came out.
And what I mean, like, obviously, besides the sales, were there people starting to recognize you? What was going on that clued you in?
Probably because I would go to a lot of local science fiction conventions. And at the time, I was going to San Diego Comic-Con every year. And that's when I realized, wow, this is a big deal.
And you guys were such a tight-knit group back then, and I know that I've talked to other artists, and I know that there weren't a lot of stories that maybe were necessarily fun anecdotes, but I wanted to know, did you have any like fun or goofy memories that you remembered happening in those early days that you care to share?
Yes, it was a local science fiction convention, and my girlfriend at the time, and Anson Maddox, and I think Mark Tadine might have been there too, were going up into like a dealer's room, and they had the Magic cards there.
Uh-huh.
And I remember I pulled up, it was a volcanic island, and I said, Anson, look at this, it's going for $12.
Oh,
I said, can you believe that, $12? And he goes, yeah, look at mine, this is like worth $6. And we were just sitting there dumbfounded that our cards were worth more than the packs cost at the time. And it was, yeah, I'd say that was probably about a year after the game came out.
Oh, that's so crazy. I mean, it is
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, to look at the costs of some of them, it's insane. I mean,
I can't even afford to buy my own cards.
you don't have any left over, like
No,
your own? That's a
no,
bummer. That's a
no, because at the time, I was working just stupid hours. I had no money. And so when people wanted to buy a card or buy an original painting or something, I sold it for next to nothing because I did need to put gasoline in my car at the time to pay my rent.
It's totally understandable. I mean, like I was talking with Julie Barrow, who you know very well.
Yes.
It's impossible for you to have known that. How could you have known?
Yeah. And Julie and I were just artists. We weren't working for Wizards of the Coast. I was never an employee there.
Really?
And so, yeah, never. I was hired on several times to do little projects here and there, like work on a style guide or something. And so I'd work there for like 3 weeks or a month. But I was never an employee.
Which
Yeah.
style guides did you work on? I would imagine was it the Kamigawa, maybe?
I didn't work on Kamigawa because I was busy with another project at the time. They asked me to work on that one. I worked on 3 or 4 before Kamigawa. Yeah, but I can't remember the names of them because they always had like a joke name,
Right.
so that it couldn't get out. So if it got out, it'd be like, I don't know what it is.
Mhm.
And sometimes, most of the time, the card names would change too. So I'd go to a convention and some kid would walk up and he goes, "Did you paint this card in this set?" And I'm like, "Man, I don't know. Does it have my name on it?" Because I don't know. They change all the names.
Speaking of your name, the accent, what happened to it? It was there in the beginning. I don't actually, I'm not quite sure what the accent would be called.
Yeah, it's a line over the O that makes it a long O sound. So it's Snoddy, not Snoddy.
Okay,
And so people always mispronounced it. So in junior high, I started putting a line over the top, and it just became, that's the way I sign my name, and that's the way the government recognizes my name when I sign my tax forms.
So then why is it in more of your more modern cards, is it no longer there?
I don't know. That's a great mystery. I never, I kind of don't care.
Well, I mean, it's not
Yeah.
really, it's not life or death. It's
No.
it's a curiosity for me. Just I see these things that the OCD brain. I got an English master's, so whenever there's
Oh yeah.
anything happening along those lines, I perk up.
And then sometimes they'll misname it. They'll put umlauts over the top of the O, which is not the right pronunciation. And I think that would pronounce it snooty. And that's
It'd be like snooty or like snooty.
Yeah, something like that. A real Scandinavian kind of sounding.
Yeah.
Even though I'm half Swedish, the Scottish side of the family is the Snody side.
I see.
Yeah.
That's well, what can I say? That's quite a combo.
Yes.
Was it make you Swedish? No, no.
I don't know, because Scotland is filled with what, shipwrecked Scandinavians, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's where they come from.
I joke with my dad being Jewish and my mom being Catholic that I'm a cashew. So
that's pretty funny. I haven't heard that one yet.
My parents rebelled against God to make me. So, one of the questions that I want to talk about is now you have a kind of a harsh, at least to me, it seems you're harsh to your artwork. And I've read in interviews that you said that the only piece that you've really ever that you really love is the one behind me, Lava Axe. Yeah. Is that really true?
Yeah.
Why?
There's a couple of cards I did that because I don't know. I always, when I first started working at Magic, I saw the cards were so tiny. I went, I'm going to paint this a real graphic design kind of way. As if you notice the first three cards I did, which was Volcanic Island and Spell Blast, and I think it was Psychic Venom. Pretty sure it was. And I said, okay, I'll turn them in. And when it gets shrunk down, it's going to look, real graphic. And then the first card pack I opened up, I pulled out Quentin Hoover's Regeneration, with the growing the arm back.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went, I screwed up. I should have done so much more. And then I really flipped out and tried to become a better artist. And each set I wanted to just be better and better and better.
And you'd have gotten better. I mean, like if you
thank you.
If you look at your artwork, there is a growth to it. I mean, I feel for you guys in a sense that you all were so young and so basically thrown to the wolves. You weren't given much time or resources. I mean, these things people don't quite understand that this was, you guys were a group of kids basically in the basement.
Yes. Literally, some of us.
Yeah, and so there's sort of this sort of difficulty of grasping it, but at the same time, I mean, you really mean to tell me that you don't think your Winter Orb is good?
No, Winter Orb, that one was pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. And also, if the last card of mine that's come out is Evolving Wilds,
yes,
for that D&D crossover set, that one turned out good. I'm pretty proud of that one.
Now that's the thing. Well, first of all, Winter Orb, I really was blown out by it because for the longest time I assumed that the Ice Orb the Winter Orb, that would be the obvious name of it, though. I assumed that it was maybe CG because it looks really real. And then when I was finally able to see it up close and personal, I was like, oh wow, it's not. But that one to me is a big success. So
thank you. Yeah, that one turned out really good. I'm pretty happy with that. And I sold that original just immediately after it was done.
Oh, I bet.
I think I put it in Julie Barrow's gallery at the time. It sold in 3 seconds.
Was it like the Crab Jab gallery?
Yes.
You had a lot of cool sort of experiences there, right?
Yeah, because Julie is basically like my little sister. I call her my little sister.
She calls you her big brother.
Good. She should. She should.
My segue was going to be with Winter Orb being like appearing to me as digital. Do you still view digital art with sort of the kind of, I'd say, kind of a hard like stance that you have
I don't
talked
like
about in
it.
the past? Now,
Yeah, I don't
why
like it.
is that? Why do you not like it?
Well, a couple of reasons. One, if you paint digital, you can't go to a convention and sell the original.
Well, that's but that it does that make it not good? I mean, that makes it
And
maybe
also,
risky.
I like painting with stuff. There's another artist out there who he drew Conan the Barbarian years ago. His name is Val Merrick,
Yes.
and we've been buddies forever, for 30 years. And Val and I have had multiple conversations over the years where artists like to work with the stuff. You know, if you're a sculptor, you want to work in wood or plastic or stone or whatever your thing is. And as a painter, you want a real paint on a real board, and then you can put it on a wall and go, look, that's the real thing, you know? And we enjoy that process. And I don't want to change it. I worked in a video game company for 2 years to the day, because I got fired the same day I was
That's
hired 2 years later. They fired 27 people. I was just one of them.
oh
But I had a problem with learning to paint on the Wacom tablet and stuff. And to the point where my art director finally just pulled the thing off my desk and he said, here's some pencils and here's some magic markers. And you just work the way you do. And we'll just scan them in.
Do you think that maybe because and it is true, and especially from going from the digital, like my generation, born in 81, going from analog to
Kids.
digital. Yeah. But going from analog to digital, I mean, I remember a time when you answered a phone and it was in the wall and you had the curly Q cord and you could only go so far. Going analog to digital, it's a difficult shift to make if you're not in the thick of like the transition, right?
Yeah.
So do you think maybe the difficulty, maybe the challenge is because you were sort of set up in a situation where you had already learned how you were going to learn, and that was a difficult thing to get into?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that going on there. It was tough because I was painting in acrylic, and I would go to San Diego Comic Con, and there was another artist there. His name is Jeff Watts. He runs him and his father run this art school in San Diego, which is just phenomenal. If you want to go to Watts Academy. If you want to go to art school, go there.
Yes, Lucas Graciano.
You can thank me, Jeff, for pumping your school there. But he used to call me Angus Guy. He could never remember my name because I wanted to paint like Angus McBride, who did all those Men at Arms books, those little small ones, and I had tons of them. And believe it or not, when I went to art school, they didn't teach you how to paint. So I had to be self-taught. So I would get an Angus McBride book and figure out, how did he do this tree? How did he paint metal? And so I eventually learned. And Jeff says, you need to quit this acrylic nonsense. You need to paint in gouache because it's going to be easier for you. So I bought a bunch of gouache paints and I painted a card. It was for Iron Crown publication at the time. And then I called up Phil Folio because he lives down the road from me. And I said, Phil, you still paint acrylic? He's like, yeah, I do. I said, well, I'm coming over to your house and I'm going to give you all my acrylic paint. I threw him in a big box. I drove it down to his house. I knocked on his door and I go, here you go, Phil. I'm done with acrylic. So.
And was that it for acrylic? Have you ever gone back for funsies or?
Yes, I do paint in acrylic when I do card alters because you can't paint gouache. It just doesn't stick to that shiny coating on the card. So I did have to buy some cheap gouache paint. And so when someone hires me to do an altar, I'll paint on acrylic for them. So, yeah.
Where did the goblin creativity come from? Your goblins are very distinct and they stand out. And I was wondering where that kind of goofy, like sort of like they're like the gremlins in a sense. They have that goofiness.
Yeah.
But they're menacing too.
I think it was either Anson. I think Anson came up with those goblins for a style guide. And it was one of the first style guides we got. And they wanted these goblins. And then Mark Tadine had done the Mogs, I think they're called. They're really, really crazily. And so those are in the style guides. And so you had to paint them to look like that. And I always put these, because goblins to me are just the funnest. We're going to get into more goblin stuff here
Okay.
later on. It's going to be really fun.
We can goblin it out.
We're going to goblin it up today. And I always wanted to give them a little bit of character and make them silly, because to me, goblins are entertaining. They're like silly little critters, and I wanted some degree of humor to them, because I try to put some humor in most of my artwork.
The like for instance, like Vindicate, like maybe just a hint of Star Wars in there.
It's not a hint. It's basically an homage. And by the way, they screwed that card up too.
Why is that?
Because the original Vindicate was 2 big explosions, and I think it was the weather light that was supposed to be. It was in that card series, and it was just supposed to be the weather light speeding away from the explosions, like the Millennium Falcon from the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
What they did is they darkened up that first explosion, and they put a beam shooting from Vindicate to that piece of the tower. And I just went, come on, really? Is that what we're going with this?
Now,
and that was done by the R&D department. It wasn't even the art director did that.
Really?
Yeah, they did that to a couple of my cards.
So I gather, from what I gather, there was maybe a time where things were trickier from the creative standpoint at Wizards of the Coast, for at least on some of the earlier artists and how they were involved. Is that a fair statement?
Trickier? I don't know if it was trickier. It was just different art directors have different ways of working.
Mm-hmm.
Style guides were different. Used to they'd sometimes just mail you a big stack of paper with the style guides in it, and then it became online. You had to print it out. Now it's this big, huge process. You got to type in all sorts of code words and just to get the style guides. And yeah, it's a little different.
But though I will say that looking at you lately, you've been seemingly, I mean, not just the fact that you're getting reprints at a pretty steady basis. You've been popping up with new artwork a lot more than you have in the past. What do you think has brought that positive change for you? I mean, where did the influx come from, and how is that going for you?
I'm pretty happy with it. I love painting Magic cards. And I guess it's maybe nostalgia. Because they put me on a shelf for about 7 years. The last card I think I did before, I just turned in 2 the week before last. They're brand new. And of course I can't tell you, or else they'll send hitmen out to kill me.
Yes, it's very serious. They won't do it.
They don't like that stuff. So, but the last 2 that came out was the Quicksilver Torque and the
liquid metal.
Liquid metal. Yeah, the liquid metal. Well, see, they changed the name.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And
that one, and let me see here.
And it was Evolving Wilds that just came out. Was it
the
month and a half, 2 months ago?
Yeah, it came out in the previous set. It's in standard now, but it's the previous one before that for the Adventure of Forgotten Realms.
That's right. Yeah.
D&D. Now, that's a cool card they gave you. Like that's a standout.
Yeah.
They give you a showcase. Like
it is.
That's gotta be. I mean,
and the art director told me why he gave me that card.
Why is that?
He said, Brian, you paint just like old D&D modules. And he goes, you're perfect for this card. He said, there's going to be 9 or 10 in this particular set. And we're going to make them look like D&D module covers. And I went, oh, that's the greatest. That was my dream in high school, to paint a D&D module cover. And now technically I've done that.
You have done that. And did you get a chance to put that painting on the market, or did you keep it?
Oh, I sold it immediately. Yeah. I sold it the day it came out.
And this is probably a gauche to ask, but what did you make? I'd love to know.
It went for just over $12,000.
That is so cool. That's so cool.
Oh, you should have heard the conversation I had with my parents. I'm like, the art school you paid for didn't go to waste, Ma.
Yeah. You're like, Dad, I just paid for half of it with a painting sale, basically. I mean, that is incredible. I mean, and I say this to you guys, but it puts you.
I'm very thankful for that, by the way.
I mean, it puts you in an echelon of artists. Like there are very few artists that can say on the planet, in the history of the planet, I was able to charge this much for a painting and worked through it. That's astonishing.
Yeah, Wizards of the Coast, I think, pays They pay between 1 and 1,500, depending on what they're going to use it for, how big it's going to appear. Because sometimes they're going to cut in on it, and then for something else, it'll be a bigger
Right.
scene. So they'll pay you a little bit more, but that's what the original went for. Some collector, I can't even remember who it was. I'm sure he doesn't want anyone to know who he was. Paid, and I went through Mark Aronowitz's
Mm-hmm.
site, and he's been really good to me. So he said, Brian, let's sell that thing right away. And I went, okay, Mark, you take it away, baby.
Amen to that. I mean, no, I actually interviewed Mark for my channel too. So yeah, he's
great.
He's
great.
He's the big man on campus for you guys.
Yeah.
He
does me well. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
Yes.
The thing that I want to know is that do you have any sort of cards, like, and maybe it's even if it's just a reprint or a character in the game, is there anybody or anything that you sort of are dying to try out as far as
I can't think of anything right now. It's a good question. I never really thought of that. I always like painting artifacts and stuff. For a while, they had me doing one battle scene after another. They're like, hey, throw in like 300 dudes. And I'm like, oh,
That's
really?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I was just talking.
I had this one where it was some giant Titan kind of thing that looked like an elephant, and he's just trampling this army full of stuff. And that was fun, but it took me forever to paint that card.
Speaking of giant things, I read in an interview that you said that, now maybe I misread it, but giants were real?
Yeah.
Can you
They've been digging up huge, gigantic skeletons for hundreds of years all over the world.
What's a huge, gigantic skeleton, though? What's the size of it?
Well, supposedly, and I really got into this for a long time, supposedly they're anywhere from like 7 to 36 feet high.
36 feet high?
That's what they say.
Who's they, though? I mean,
there was a guy, his name was Steve Quayle. He's still out there somewhere. I did a lot of artwork for his website, and he wrote a bunch of books on giants and supernatural things. And I went to the Tokyo National Museum in Ueno, and I saw these artifacts. I saw a spearhead, maybe 3 feet long. I saw a giant iron shield about 5 feet tall, and these giant shoes that were about this big. And I photographed them, and then I painted this thing where a normal sized Japanese at the time who'd be about 5 feet tall. I'm like, well, where did these come from, Steve? This is interesting. And he saw that painting, goes, do you want to paint a bunch of stuff for me? And I said, yes, I do. So I did a couple book covers for him, and just a bunch of pictures that are on his website. I think to this day, they're still up there.
So they're claiming that the direct descendants of humans were that tall, like 36
Steve
feet?
Quayle has a theory that, hold on a second.
No worries.
That giants were a race of beings created by fallen angels and humans.
Fallen angels, like the biblical?
Yeah, like Old Testament stuff.
So, well, that's interesting.
And when
where'd the wings go?
Well, they're not. That's a long story.
I feel like you should get a couple of, like, at least a couple of
of stumps,
you know?
Right?
I mean, like, if all I'm going to get is to be giant, and I'm like, well, great, now I have to deal with gravity, because if I'm 36 feet tall, I'm going to have arthritis.
Yes, but if you're supernatural, you get to do supernatural stuff, right? So, and that's the whole theory. And the American Indians have hundreds of stories about giants that they had to fight. Giants that built things, and they were scary to them.
Well, I mean,
I think it was Kit Carson or not Wild Bill, but it was Bill Cody, who had went and stayed with the Paiute Indians, or it was Pawnee, and they're having this big party, and this one guy pulls out a femur bone that's, I don't know, it's like 4 feet long, and the Indians said, yeah, a long time ago we used to have to fight these giant monster people. And his doctor was there, and he went, yeah, it's a human proportion femur bone. And the Indians said, yeah, we didn't like them. They were mean to us, and they would eat us. So we had to kill them all.
You think the Indians were fucking with them?
No, I don't think so. Indians are pretty serious.
Well, but they also
Yeah.
have a sense of humor. I mean, I just would be like, because it'd
Yeah,
be,
where'd they get the bone though? Right?
I
It's
mean,
a
I
real.
don't know. I can't say. I will say that while I am skeptical of there
Mhm.
being angel giants, I'd imagine there are freaky deek tall people throughout history because every so
Sure.
often you get what's the tallest man on record is like 8, 9 feet tall or something.
Yeah, he's a pretty big guy. I think it's Robert Wadlow or something like that. He's in the
Yeah.
Guinness Book of World. Yeah, he's like close to 9 feet high,
And he's got like size 17 shoes, and
something like that.
it
Yeah,
looks
something
painful to
crazy.
be that big. I mean, it
Yeah.
just really does. So, but to get back on to get back to things. So, one of the things that I was curious about is that,
Hmm.
and now if it is a sensitive subject, I'm not trying to be I'm not
You can
trying to
ask me
be
anything you want.
okay.
Yeah.
That's good. What's your social security number? I'm just kidding. Um,
I'll
the
give you a joke one.
what's that? Uh,
001000000. That's my social security.
that's binary.
Go, you can go ahead and look that one up. Yeah.
What is it? Is it a? Is it a?
No,
Is it what I think it is?
I don't know. I just made it at him.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Gold
that'd be
on my
awesome if
booty.
he like said "fuck you" and like.
No, I wouldn't do that.
No, he doesn't curse, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't.
I'm trying not to. I do curse a lot at home. I'm trying to kind of get that under control.
So you have mentioned that you've mentioned in that about you were doing an interview for a magazine, and they asked you a question about privateer press, and
Hmm.
they asked you, did you learn anything from that venture? And you said no comment. What
Yeah.
what I mean, is that because of something difficult that happened? Why did you
Yeah, it wasn't a fun place to work anymore, so I quit.
Okay, all right. So they're just the workplace was not giving you
The workplace was not a positive environment.
it was toxic.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's I was just curious because you're very verbose, and then to be so tight-lipped about that, I was interested. And another thing that I read too,
Hmm.
well, there's some interesting stuff about you're an interesting guy,
Okay.
for sure. The fact that you said that you did album covers. Now, what were some of the album covers that you've done? Anything that you would like love to show the audience if
Yeah,
you
I did 2 album covers for a local metal band that I met this guy at a comic book convention, and we're still friends to this day. And looked at my artwork and he goes, "Yeah, I want you to paint my album cover." Well, I've only heard that about 300 times,
Mhm.
right? And I said, "Yeah, whatever." Well, he called me back, and I painted his album cover. And the name of the band at the time was, God, I can't remember what the name of the, but the album name was called Man Infest Destiny.
Oh.
Yeah, and then he broke up with that band and started another one called Gith Yankee. And Gith Yankee is those undead monsters in Fiend Folio, or
Oh yeah,
yeah. And so I did one for him. I did that for him too.
that's
So those
cool.
are the 2 album covers I've done. I think those are the only 2 I did. Yeah.
Um, you worked on Garfield and Friends?
Yeah, the
Oh,
TV show.
that is so crazy. I loved that when I was little. Like it was that was my jam. I mean, Garfield was angry and he needed lasagna. I
Yeah, of
identified.
course. Yeah.
What did you do on that show? What were you?
I was an assistant storyboard artist. My friend Rick Hoberg, who I used to work in comic books with, I used to be Mike Grell's background artist, and then we kind of lost our job with I think Image Comics at the time. And Rick, I used to sit right in the middle. There's Mike on this side, and Rick was over here. And Rick says, "Hey, you're not working on comics. You want to do some storyboards for Saturday morning cartoons?" That's what he used to do. And he goes, "I know a bunch of guys at Hanna-Barbera. I know everybody." He goes, "Let's work on some cartoons together. I'll get you some work." And so that was one of the shows we worked on.
Was
We
it
worked on about 6 or 7 shows.
what was the experience like working on something like that? That seems like that
I
would
thought
be
it was
a jump.
different. I thought it was fun. It wasn't that hard. It was very time consuming. And I wasn't making a lot of money, but it was steady. And Rick was really good to me. He's like my older brother. Without Rick, I wouldn't be here today. So hi, Rick.
That's
So
nice.
thank you. Yeah.
So I guess the exchange of the personal relationships that you develop from these endeavors that you go through can oftentimes be more rewarding than the money itself.
Yeah.
Although
And we did
12,000
that.
for painting is
Well, that's the big one, right?
that's gravy.
That's gravy, and very thankful for that. Mhm.
Um, the uh, Japanese armor
Mhm.
thing. What what started that? I mean, when did you become interested in that? As
When I was a little kid, we did a paper mache assignment, and I think it was second grade or third grade or something. And my teacher said, Japanese armor was sometimes made out of paper mache. And I went, really? Well, I want to make a suit of armor. Well, I tried it many times and failed because I was, 9 years old or something, or 7.
right,
Um, but I always had an interesting affinity with Japanese culture. And so when I was 19 years old, when I first moved out here to go to art school, I got a job at a dry cleaner. So I had some money. And my friend Russ in art school, he had lived in Japan, and we joined a Japanese sword study group. And so I bought a Japanese sword, and then I started buying helmets and face masks and stuff. And to this day, I have just a house just packed with that stuff.
did
Well, an
you
apartment.
did you learn how to use the swords?
I did take martial arts lessons for many, many years.
Is it terrifying to use them? Because those are instruments of death,
Yeah, I just have them sitting on my shelf. I
right?
don't swing them around.
Well, I thought the sword study you guys didn't. I didn't know if that
It
was.
was it was an art thing. It's like, how the swords were made, what kind
Oh,
of steel is it. You can see the different pattern weldings, and who's the artist who made it, how old that kind of study.
how do they make
Yeah.
armor out of paper mache? I mean, do they?
Well, that's kind of some armor things, like helmet decorations, were made out of paper mache, but whole paper mache armors, whether they existed or not, that one not 100% sure about, because
Gosh,
Japanese armor was made mainly out of either lacquered leather or lacquered iron.
that's intense. Can you imagine having that stuff on and getting diarrhea? It would be a nightmare. That's all I think about when I see armor.
Is how to go to the toilet? Yeah.
Well, I'd be like, what happened if I got diarrhea? I would be.
Well, I think we know what's going to happen.
Well, that's the
You're going to
problem.
need to wash it out after you're done fighting.
Yeah, Sakashima's revenge.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of, I did just speak with RK Post, and I love the little homage you made to his character and your Sakashima's student, I believe it was.
Yes, they said they said paint a ninja on a rooftop, and you have to put Randy Post's. They gave me a little picture of what that mask looked like. He said he has to be wearing that mask, and then so I painted it on there, and that was Randy's original design.
It's really cool. I love that kind of stuff. Do you have any other sort of Easter eggs throughout the game that you have put in there, or have you ever seen?
Yeah, I got in trouble for a couple of them too.
Do tell.
So there was I can't remember the name of the card set, but I used to put Viking runes that would say various things.
Such
Uh,
as
well, one was a sword that had a hand, and it was supposed to be disenchant.
yes, yes.
So the sword says the word magic on it in Viking runes, and so it's sucking the magic off the sword. So I thought, oh, that'd be really cool. And then I did another character. He's got all these bones and stuff on his head, like a skull helmet, and on his shield it said, "I am really mean." On his shield. Well, after a couple of those, they put out a thing: no hidden messages. You can't don't write anything in any kind of real writing. So
Yeah,
I never put any curse words or anything dirty or silly, or just something a little humor. Like I said, I like humor and
Well,
things.
I'm really mean is kind of silly. It's a little
It's a little
silly.
little silly, but I thought it was fun.
Yeah, no, it is fun.
I had several fans over the years translate that and write me fan letters and stuff saying, "Hey, I figured out what your shield
Wow,
says."
that's nuts. I mean, like, well, I mean, there are people who can, they speak Phyrexian. I'm like,
Yeah, that's or
I,
all those Klingon dudes like the early '80s who would speak Klingon at a science fiction convention.
yeah, I'm like,
Yeah,
Phyrexian I'm like, it sounds like radio frequency, and loogies like being hacked. It's a
yeah.
cool looking language, but it's like, and
I think I'm going to skip that language. Yeah.
yeah, it sounds like what having diarrhea in a armor sounds like. Um, Sonic Burst. That now see now how can you not love that one? That one is with the it says music skies the savage beast, and this guy is just getting eviscerated by
Sonic Burst.
do you know which one I'm talking about?
Oh, is it with the kind of these light ray things are coming
Yes,
and the
it's
guy's
like
like
shoot.
falling
And
apart?
he's like, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was told by the art director that my stuff wasn't very dynamic. So I needed to step up my dynamism.
Well,
And I said,
that was dynamite.
I'm going to do that. And he was very happy with it. He goes,
Yeah, it's
that's
great.
what I want to see.
And Thran Turbine again. It's a really cool painting.
Oh, thank you.
I really do feel like you're sort of you're giving yourself the short end of the leash with your quality of stuff. Even Tidal Wave. I mean, looking at it, and actually, your Tidal Wave is in my Artist Proof Cube, that video that I did a few weeks ago, where we're building a cube made entirely of artist proofs, and
cool.
Your Tidal Wave and your Tidal Wave is in there with a token, and you did a nice panorama where it's a goblin surfing.
Yes, I did. I did that on the backs of I think it was 2 artist proofs.
It's loads of fun. Now, with I did it again. I swear to God, I woke up at like 5 a.m. and I just couldn't get back to sleep. So, but one thing I do have to ask about, Power Taint. Was that funny then, as far as names go? Because I know it's childish, but every time I read it, I'm just like,
yeah, some of these names are a little ridiculous. I sometimes I don't even think of some of that stuff until after I turn the art in. So, because usually I'm in a panic mode. Gotta get this done. Because I don't turn in late art. That's another thing.
Well,
I am Johnny on the spot when I turn in my cards. So.
Well, I'd imagine that would be I mean, that's clearly you do, because I don't think they would be asking you back to do art if you were, someone who ran late.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like that's a one-time event only. The thing that I wanted to ask you, though, when you were talking about goblins, we're going to talk about goblins again. You had something in mind. What was the goblins? The goblins thing you were saying? I feel like you were alluding to something.
Yes. So my buddy Ben Thompson, who, by the way, writes these really cool books called Badass.
Oh, you cursed? I'm just kidding. So what is Badass about?
So Ben Thompson is a writer. He writes history books.
Okay.
Badass books. And there's 3 of them in this series. And I met Ben through working on these books. And a couple of years ago, we got together and he said, hey, I had this idea. We're going to do some Dungeons and Dragons type stuff, because he's a big D&D nerd like I am. So he said, we should film ourselves and start our own YouTube channel called Dungeon Mastery with Ben and Brian. I said, great. So we put a lot of and what we'll do is we sit at my kitchen table, we drink beer, and we come up with ideas of what we want to do. And then it'll cut to me, Bob Ross, and all this stuff out. Put a camera right there so you can see me painting it. And so we've done a lot of goblin stuff, because both of us just think goblins are about the funniest thing ever.
That's
so
cool.
We did a goblin winged hussar. He's riding a bear. And when you're done, you can put links to the YouTube channel and things like that there.
And really any images that you have of the artwork that like, because sometimes on the internet it's difficult to find decent resolution of.
Well, here's the cool part. If you go onto the website, which is Badass of the Week, that's what Ben started. There's a link there to all of our YouTube channels and all of the art we did.
Okay.
So you can just pull it right off there and throw it up. It's all there.
Brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant. Do you own any of your originals still by chance?
Magic art?
Mm-hmm.
No. I think I have one sketch. Maybe, I'm not sure if I even have that anymore. There might be one sketch for one of the tidal wave wall that came out about 7 or 8 years ago. I think I have that because I did 2 sketches. I sold one. I still think I have one left. That's the only art of magic I have left.
Wow. You do
that, and the 2 originals I just turned in. So when I get them back, I'll have those until they're released, and then I can show them and I'll sell them.
That's exciting. It's really exciting. Is it is it safe to say that you would be cold, but you would have to hold on to like maybe one of them, right? I mean, it seems like you would want to do that just for maybe one piece. Is
No, you see, because if I sell it, I can buy another samurai helmet.
That's true. You could buy another
See,
samurai helmet, and one can never have too many
no,
samurai
you can't.
I mean, I don't.
I'm living proof of that.
I keep a spare one in my trunk with toilet paper
Really?
in
So
case.
it won't make that Phyrexian noise.
Right. It's yeah, Phyrexian Dreadnought. Yes, I do. I have several of them. But to bring things back to the point now, this might be again controversial.
Okay.
Um, I feel bad. I do feel bad for you in a sense that you were grouped in with the cards that were banned. And I
Mhm.
just I wanted to know you were if you were forced to, or if you were sort of given any sort of negative feedback, in a sense that I do not feel like that was the intention, nor is that what your message was. But I
It's
was
not my message.
right,
It's Wizards of the Coast.
and I was concerned that people were getting maligned unfairly. There were some people, shall remain nameless, in that group of people who I would be comfortable in declaring that yes, they have a problem, but you were not one of them, and I just wanted to get your thoughts.
I don't need to make any waves. However, I did get several emails of fans who wanted to know why my card was banned, and I said it's not my deal. Wizards of the Coast banned it, whatever reason it was. We live in this politically correct world, which I don't particularly like. And I got this really intense email from a guy. He's Syrian,
Mm-hmm.
and he was really angry that my card was banned.
Yes, because
And he was he I think he lives out of New Jersey. He's a doctor too.
okay,
And he
yeah.
said, I don't know. So he wrote this really nasty letter to Wizards of the Coast. And he said, can I approve? And I said, look, I'm going to stay out of this.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to write it, that's fine. But he was angry that they did that. He goes, that's part of my culture and I don't have a problem with it. So I don't know why you have a problem. That was what he said, although he used some pretty choice words.
I questioned it too, because I did research on it, and I'm absolutely not a scholar and by any means, but from what I gathered, at least from what the popular lexicon says, that it is not, that the word just means to defend the Muslim faith, or it is a positive movement.
That's what he said. And he said, I'm not even Muslim. He's Syrian Orthodox, which is like Apostle Paul type stuff.
That's intense.
So he's not even a Muslim. And
Yeah.
he was angry.
And
So
yeah, that was one of the things that I found very confusing. And I mean, I'm not to, and I obviously I don't want to poke the bear, or,
Mhm.
say like, this or that. And I do also understand that they are, maybe they're in this climate, you have to sort of be proactive and be like, if this even has the potential to offend, we need to take care of it now. But
I'm offended 400 times a day by what's going on, but I just stay out of it. I don't want to have nothing to do with it. It's not my wheelhouse. I just want to draw pictures and make a living, drink my dark German lager and my cheap Italian red wine, and collect my armor. That's all I want to do.
Cheap Italian red wine was my nickname in high school.
Well, it is Chianti.
Some fava beans.
No, won't eat the fava beans. Just the Chianti.
I don't even think I know what fava beans are, to be honest.
I don't either. I don't even want to know.
No, they
because of
gross.
that darn movie.
Right. Yeah, Hannibal Lecter. He ruined that for. So
he ruined that cuisine for me.
Yeah, I know. I can't eat people anymore. It's just ridiculous.
Me too.
The other things that you worked on, like what were some other cool things you worked on? Because you've had such a interesting sort of career path where you've diverged in many different places.
When I got out of art school, I started working in advertising. I worked for the in-house ad agency at a software retailer called Egghead Software, which they don't exist anymore. They went out of business 20 years ago or so, maybe longer than that. But I was a product illustrator. So I painted pictures of joysticks and keyboards and speakers, and I would reproduce box covers, because at the time they thought software was scary. So if you had a photograph of it, which sometimes didn't show up in a newspaper very well because they would be so tiny, I would do a black and white drawing of that box cover.
Aye.
And that would go in, that way you could shrink it down this big and still see it in the newspaper. Because newsprint is horrible, right?
Right. Yeah.
And coupon books and stuff. Yeah. And then, so I did a lot of that. And then one day they fired the entire art department. And that's when I started working in comic books and Saturday morning cartoons.
What year was that when that happened?
It was 92 or 93. I think it was 1992.
I worked at the now Tampa Bay Times, but back then it was the St. Pete Times, and I was in my early 20s outside of school. I was a runner, which basically we take the tubes. They would literally carve with like straight blades. They would carve the newspaper out, lay it out, and send it through tubes up and down the floors. And I was the tube catcher, and it was sort of like my way in. But then digital came, and the floor was just gone. It was gone overnight, and I was one of the sort of like the unfortunates of that. Which, what are you gonna do? But it sounds like that's sort of what was going on with you, where there was sort of like a mass.
Yeah, and then when I was working at that comic book studio, I went to a local science fiction convention that I used to go to every year. And my boss at the time says, "Well, why do you want to go there? There's nothing." I said, "Well, I pick up some extra work," because I had met Peter Atkinson several years before that. I used to put Viking pictures up in the art show. And Peter used to go, "Someday, Brian, I'm going to do a Viking game and I'm going to have you draw the pictures for it." And then when Jesper Meerfers became the art director, he was having like this table where you could go up and show your artwork. And he was hiring for Magic at the time.
Wow.
And I showed him my product illustrations. He said, "Wow, this is the weirdest portfolio I've ever seen, but do you want to paint some cards?" And I went, "Yes, I do." That was the biggest career move I ever turned out to be. Great.
Does it ever get weird or sort of like out of body where you're like, this is my life. This is so like, it's charmed in a sense. Not saying that you've had it easy or that you haven't worked.
Oh, especially this last week. That's why I'm on Dan's computer and not mine. Okay. All right.
Because
we won't even describe the story that happened last week.
But
this week.
But yeah. You sure? Because it sounds like it's an interesting story. I mean,
oh, it's interesting, but it's bad.
Oh, come on! What do you mean? It was so bad. No, you can't do that. You can't do that.
I bought a new computer because my other one is I think made from the town of Bedrock.
Yes.
Which is why I couldn't do the Zoom on that one.
Yes, yeah.
And so I ordered a new one, and of course it doesn't work. And I have my buddy, his name is Brian too, and he's an IT guy, and he's been over 3-4 times this week. And we found out that the new computer doesn't support the router, or the company that is the internet provider doesn't support that router through this computer. So I had to order a new router. Oh. It's supposed to arrive today.
Oh man.
I hope it arrives today.
Because
I've been out of internet access for a whole week. And so when I came over to Dan's house, I'm just shaking like, I hope this interview goes well.
You're like,
can we double check the Zoom connection, please, again, Dan?
Yeah, well, that was weird. What happened? I mean, for whatever reason, I didn't see you joining, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, thank goodness you had the foresight to say, "Hey, contact me prior to," so everything.
I just want everything to go smooth because I like things to go well, and so if I double or triple check something, that's just my personality.
It's not a bad trait. Yeah. It's not a bad trait to have. I'll tell you that much. That sucks that happened because without internet, you sort of feel like you're living in a tree.
Well, I can't really work because I do a lot of alters and things like that for fans, which I love, by the way.
Okay.
I should have started doing it years ago. I don't know why I didn't. But
why do you think you didn't do it?
Well, one is because I had to paint in acrylic. And so it meant I have to buy acrylic paints, and I don't like painting in acrylic. But anyway, a fan in Italy who's been after me for years to paint altars, I finally just typed up one day and I said, "You know what? I'm going to do one for you." And I did, and he was happy. He told all of his friends, and I do altars almost every single week.
I love the altars. I love hearing the strange stories. of what people ask. What are
Oh, there's
some of
some of them are real strange.
I would like a top three or of the weirdest and that you've gotten. I mean, like, and don't worry, you go for the gold.
I paint a lot of Star Wars stuff on my altars because there's a big crossover. Magic fans and Star Wars fans are kind of one and the same.
Mhm.
So those are fun. Had to paint a whole bunch of characters and things and spaceships, which I love doing. It's a lot of fun. It's very challenging to get them to look just right because they're so tiny. And my eyesight isn't quite as good as it used to be. So sometimes I have to whip out my little magnifying glass and paint on there.
Do you get like one of those big ones that they use like
I
that?
got a big one that I have to hold. I look like
You have to
something out
hold
of
it.
it.
You don't have like one of the things that you have like a squeaky wheel on it, and you like the way
Uh,
like Frankenstein uses it, or Dr. Frankenstein has one in the horror movies.
I should get a Dr. Frankenstein one, but I'm the old school Frankenstein one where I still have to hold it.
Right. Yes.
So
Exactly. But which were
need to
probably isn't
upgrade.
cumbersome at all.
Yeah. So I did a lot of those, and those are fun. Those are my favorite. But I had to paint Rick and Morty
Yeah.
on 3 or 4 of them. And at the time I didn't know who the heck Rick and Morty are. Who's Rick and Morty? And then I realized, oh, it's a cartoon. And then my IT guy called me up a couple months ago. He goes, "You got to come over and watch this Rick and Morty cartoon." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do, because I've had to paint some on my cards, and I don't know anything about the show." So he picked me up in the car, went over to his place. He uncorked a bottle of whiskey, and we sat and watched Rick and Morty for 5 hours.
It's really like it is something else.
It is hilarious.
I mean, it's sort of just like where did it come from?
It's so bizarre.
It is.
Yeah.
It's the Justin Roiland, I think, is the name of the creator of it. He's an interesting guy, and
Yeah.
and he just does
His whole crew. I mean, all of his artists and his
Right.
voice actors and stuff. I mean, they're all. We also watched like a behind the scenes thing, which was about 35 minutes or something,
Mhm, mhm.
and how they make the Rick and Morty show, and
Yep.
that was just hilarious. I like that just as much as I like the show.
It
was
had
fun.
it has a great cast. I mean,
Yeah.
she was I can't believe she played Elliot in Scrubs. She plays the mom, and I love her in that. Like she's
Mm.
shows such range she has. I mean, people write her off as like a goofy sitcom actress, but like she plays Beth like with very real angst.
She's a real actress.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
an actress with a capital A for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
but and Colin, is it Colin? What was that guy's name? I think it's Colin Firth. No, not Firth. The guy who plays Rick's dad. He was written off too, and he's really good in it too. It's just
All those people are great. They're
it's
fantastic.
such
And
a
I was
great.
telling my buddy too that when I was painting the Rick and Morty characters, and I had to go online and get what the characters looked like, I had in mind the voices that what they were going to sound like in my head before I watched the show. And of course, when I watch a show, they're totally different. So it took me 2 shows to get used to the voices,
Oh right, yeah.
because in my head, when I saw the characters, I thought, oh, they're going to have these kinds of voices. So that was the only thing really weird for me.
Has there ever been a time where you were thinking a voice would be a certain way and it did happen like that? Like where you
Nope.
Nope. Never.
I can't think of one.
Was there ever a request that you were given that you were like, no, I'm sorry, that's just
Yeah, a couple of people wanted male appendages painted on their cards, and I just said,
Oh,
I'm not doing that.
yeah, no,
There might have been time when I was young and stupid, I might have done something like that, but I'm not doing that. Yeah.
yeah, no, you have to wonder like on what circumstances do you want to have a giant penis on a magic card? It's really
Yeah, I don't know the mentality behind it, and I don't want to know.
I think it's probably a deviant one. I mean, I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but to me, it seems like that is sort of like a Magic the Gathering equivalent of flashing somebody.
I think it probably is.
Yeah,
I
that's
got in trouble one time years ago when I was first signing cards, and back in the day we didn't charge money for signatures. I mean, I must have signed hundreds of thousands of cards before I charged a penny,
oof.
because we just weren't, so everyone made money except for the artists.
Yeah,
Um,
that's how it goes though, a lot of times.
but anyway, I charge now.
Well, yeah.
But at the time I went to a comic book uh, place over out here on the peninsula here in Washington State, And they were nice. They made dinner for us and everything. Well, they took us out to dinner later, but they had this line of kids going out the door, and they would come up and go, "Hey, can you draw this for me and draw this for me?" And so this kid comes up and he says, "Can you draw like a wolf man, like ripping somebody's head off?" And I'm like, "Okay, kid, here you go." I'm just going 500 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And then some kid comes up and he goes, "Can you draw like a topless girl for me?" And I just sketched it out, handed it over. And so the owner comes up and he goes, "Brian, you can't draw naked women."
Yeah.
And I saw, "What about the guy ripping the head off? Is that one okay?" He goes, "Oh, that's fine.
Right?
No nudity." And I went,
like, God
right.
forbid, like you watching somebody get eviscerated, that's fine, but a nipple.
Yeah, that was about 25 years ago that happened.
There's still a great societal terror of nipples. I mean, like, it's
weird.
We all have them. Everybody.
Last time I checked.
I have 2 of them right now. They're on me.
I do. I'm not showing them.
I'm not showing mine. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Everybody, keep your nipples in if you are, like if you're doing a podcast or if you're doing YouTube, or unless of course, I guess if you're on OnlyFans or whatever. But I don't know.
Whatever.
But it is shocking that like it's that Victorian mindset that has sort of just continued to stay in, because there is things were not always like that. It wasn't until the Victorian era where like sex became something that was to be discussed and only done in closed doors. You were to be ashamed of it. The body was something that was shameful. This wasn't the case.
Well, it's not the case. It's not the case in Scandinavia. It's not the case in most of Europe. And it's funny because I have friends all over the world. And I've had a lot of Germans and a lot of Scandinavians that come up to me and go, "Hey, Brian, what's the problem with you Americans? You show tons of violence on your TV, but this nudity thing is a big no-no."
It's because,
and I said, yeah. And then you go to Japan and they mix their nudity and violence together. So
they do.
Every culture is a little different.
Well, it's true. I mean, like, for instance, if you look at there is a direct correlation with repressing sexuality. When you repress sexuality, when women are oppressed, there is an increase in violence in the culture. They've done documents about this, and a lot of countries over in the Middle East have that problem. And it's
you think
a little bit, yeah, a little bit. It's not good because look, these are like sort of. I mean, can you imagine saying to a kid, by the way, you're gonna get hungry and you're gonna need, you're gonna be sleepy and you're gonna have to poop. But don't do those ever because those are a sin and you'll burn forever. And then it's sort of what we're doing. And it's not good. It's just you push something down and it's gonna pop up in another way.
I think there needs to be a balance to everything. Everything. Yes. I don't care what it is, how small or how big, there's got to be some kind of balance. And if it's unbalanced, you're gonna have problems.
What was it? Oscar Wilde said, "Everything in moderation, including moderation."
I think so. Yeah,
he was smart, and they threw him in jail too because he liked boys. So there you go. Like, and it's a bummer. Poor Oscar Wilde. They shout out Oscar Wilde. That's right. I just shouted out Oscar Wilde. He's no longer with us, but I mean, hey, maybe
he's been dead for a long time.
He has been dead for a long time. But I won't keep you for much longer because I'm sure that you.
I'm having a great time, by the way. So it's up to you. I can go on. I'm a stupid motor mouth, but you tell me whenever you gotta.
No, not motor. I mean motor mouth. I mean like tit for tat. I just want to make sure that the interview doesn't fizzle because my brain is a pile of like just rocks today.
Okay. Yours too?
Huh?
Yours too?
Oh yeah, it's no good. I woke up and I was like, oh, today's gonna be a fun one. So what are some things that you're working on now that, I mean, obviously you, like you said in the beginning of the interview, you're going to be in upcoming sets, which is awesome and exciting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have anything that you're working on now that you can talk about?
Yes. The Dungeon Mastery with Ben and Brian. That's the kind of thing I'm doing now.
It sounds like it's a real source of joy for you.
I love it. We're not hardly making any money off of it. I do sell a lot of the originals, but we have like 30 Patreon fans, and so we both make about $26 a month.
Well,
and I'm thankful for every penny of it too, by the way.
If you
that's what we're doing now.
If you can make it happen, that's all that really matters, right? It's like if it's not affecting your, bottom line, which it's not, it seems like you're doing quite well. I mean,
it's fun. I have a blast. Ben and I just have the greatest time shooting the videos, coming up with ideas, and he's just a hoot. And then I just love painting all the crazy stuff that we paint, and the fans really like it. And so as long as everyone's happy, we're going to continue to do it until we're really old.
and then you'll continue to do it
probably. Yeah.
If anybody wanted to get their hands on something from you, such as a altar or an artist proof, where would the best place to go? Where would the best place be for them to go?
The best place to go is through Mark Aronowitz. And the second best place to go is me directly, because Mark will take, he kind of specializes in certain things, but if you just want a one altar or something like that, you can send it to me. Get a hold of me through my website. I'm pretty good at answering emails most of the time. And and I'm pretty good at getting the things done pretty quickly. So
I mean, and
except this week, no internet. So you guys are, I haven't gotten back to you, that's because my computer is not cooperating with me properly.
No internet and no appendages of the male persuasion.
No appendages, yeah.
None, but well, maybe I guess an arm would be okay, right?
Arm's fine, especially robot arms. Yeah,
robot arms are fantastic.
Yeah, they're great.
What's your favorite robot? I'm just kidding. So, before this will be the final question, but I would like to know. Oh, what's that?
I'm trying to think of my favorite robot. I can't come up with one.
Oh God, really? Yeah,
there's some great ones out there.
I like the Joan Rivers one from Spaceballs. I think that she's a spoof of, like, what is it? Not CP3O. She's spoofing CP3O, but she's Joan Rivers. I love
C3. It. Yeah. All the Star Wars, except for I didn't like any of the Star Wars robots in that Han Solo movie. I thought those are crappy designs, and I don't know who the heck designed them, but not a fan of those robots.
I mean,
but the original Star Wars robots, and so I love all that stuff. It's great.
Like the actual, like we're talking now, I don't like to call, first of all, like the original Star Wars, I don't want to call them like 4, 5, and 6, because they're not. They're 1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3.
Yes, I mean, like I can't do that. I'm not going to do that, George Lucas, and you cannot make me. But the actual, like, the practical effects were so much cooler.
Oh yeah, I love that stuff. They built real suits, for people to get into and things, and then some were animatronic things and all sorts of that stuff. That I just love all that stuff. It's great.
It's hard to replicate that. It's very hard to replicate that, and there's they go too far with it. Again, like you were saying,
with
moderation.
The CG. Yeah.
If you mix them together, I've seen movies where they're brought together and it's incredible looking, where it's a combination of practical and digital, and it's amazing. You can't tell your mind's blown. But this over reliance on digital, it's sort of just.
Yeah. I thought the perfect match of digital was the second Terminator movie.
Oh,
when they had that with the liquid metal Terminator, and then the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator, that combination of those things, I thought that was great.
Yes, they did. And that
was really cool.
They, what they used to model it off of, they actually used mercury, and they used that as like a way to start it off. That was a really influential film, and believe it or not, the one that actually changed the cinematic landscape was Death Becomes Her with Meryl Streep. That was the first movie to actually effectively do human skin that was twisted. Because I don't know if you've ever seen it, but she takes an elixir that makes her look young again, and then she's pushed down the stairs and she breaks her neck and she dies.
Oh yeah, I remember that movie. That was
and she's walking around with her
with her neck's twisted around or something.
And that was the first film to ever do that, to ever do human skin that was twisted, and so it won an Oscar and everything. But it apparently, from what I understand, it changed the entire landscape from then on.
Yeah, too much CG, not a fan of.
Yeah.
And that's why digital art for me is, although there's some digital art masters out there, like I don't know if you've seen Anthony Waters' digital art. It's just phenomenal. I mean, it's just brilliant.
Yeah.
And that's the way to do it right.
See, I knew that you would be. I knew that, like, I know
Yeah.
that, like, there was a time too, I think, where the art was not the actual, like, the programs had not caught up to what the artists were capable of doing.
Mhm.
So the technology wasn't ready, and there was an awkward time where digital art just didn't ring as
Just didn't
true.
have the life to it.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
I think now that they're a little bit further along, where now it is appearing to do the things that it needed to do, and people are allowed to shine with their talent. But I find it, I knew that you would soften a little bit on it, because like Anthony, it's just like when you
Oh,
see a brilliant
he's a
piece, you're
genius.
just like, I can't fight with that. I mean,
Yeah, you can't argue with that. He's so brilliant. It's just unbelievable. I just want to smack Anthony every time I see him. I just saw him a couple weeks ago at a convention, and he showed me this piece he was working on. It's still not done. I just sat there for 5 minutes with my mouth hanging open, and it was
right.
Drew Tucker and I,
Oh,
and
Drew's
I think
great.
and Daryl Ritchie were all standing around Anthony's table, and we both all wanted to shoot Anthony at the same time because he was so good.
Yeah, that's great. That's so nice. It's like y'all get together and you're like, I'll shoot you.
It's a good
That's
compliment.
It is. I mean, like, it is very flattering. I mean, I hope someone tells me they'd like to murder me today, because I mean,
Then you know you've made it.
I've made it. I have arrived. Well, it's true though. It really is true. I mean, in a sense, you kind of like, it's nice that you can be like, damn it, you're so talented.
Mhm.
But so are you.
Thank you. Your
And-
check is in the mail.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's so nice. There's no check. I don't have
With my social security number written on it.
I live on the internet. I have no home. But I live in Lavax. So the one final question though that I
Yes.
will have
Okay.
you is, if you were to give yourself advice to your, like, say yourself starting out in the industry, what would you say to your younger self as like advice to yourself?
That's a really good question. I think it would be to focus on a little more reality painting, like realistic things, as opposed to graphic stuff. Although there's a point in there, but to focus more on, I guess, art quality. Study people who real masters, instead of just whatever's pop,
Mhm.
culturally hip right now. I think Simon Bisley, he was really popular 20 something years ago. But he was a pop and then everyone wanted to paint like Simon Bisley, including me for a short time. But instead of doing things like that, focus on, the real masters. And I think I would have kind of gone up the ladder a little quicker if I would have done that.
Who are some of the real masters in your opinion? Who would
Well,
be?
there are some, like my two favorite artists, and this is who I learned to paint from, is Ralph McQuarrie, who did all the artwork for the Star Wars movies, the first three.
Mhm.
And I actually met him once. He used to live up here in Seattle.
It seems like
It's
all
really
of you
great.
lived in Seattle. It's like
At one
the hub.
particular time, maybe
The
we all
hub.
did. And Angus McBride, who I'd mentioned earlier, that's where I learned how to paint. I would get their artwork, I'd look at it, and I'd figure out how they did something. And that's how I learned how to paint. And those were two of my heroes. I call them the McGeniuses.
Oh yeah,
They both
that's
start with MC. And
That's true.
yeah, I would have focused on them earlier in my career. Pay attention to those guys more than any other, kind of pop artists, or, what's hip in comics today and that kind of stuff.
Like, what is hip right now? Do you notice that? Is
In
there?
comics, couldn't tell you,
But do you
because
know?
I haven't
Like,
bought comic books in a long time.
do you know what's, I mean, hip with, as far as, I mean, any movements that you've been seeing? Because I mean,
Anime stuff, I don't like it.
you don't?
I don't like
I
anime
didn't
at
for
all.
a long time. Like, we're talking 36 years, and then I was introduced to a show called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and it clicked, and now I cannot stop watching it. Cannot stop. But I didn't.
But that's just one show, right?
No, I can't stop watching anime. Like,
Okay.
across the board.
You're forgiven.
No, it's I mean, like, we're talking like it's disturbing. I don't think I've watched any real TV, in a sense, like human beings doing things live, for a year. There's so much of it, And it's interesting that you're not interested
No.
in anime, and yet it is.
I love Japanese stuff.
Yeah,
I don't like anime. I don't like that. I don't like chibi art. I don't like anime stuff. It's just not my jam. I don't like it at all.
What about? I mean, the only thing I could say is if you looked at the manga, because a lot of times the manga is the really good, like it's because the artists who do those, they're like you guys, where it's pen and paper and there's a craft to it. Whereas not that there isn't a craft to these shows, and it's oh my god, Attack on Titan. Oh my god, you have to see Attack on
Well, you see, there's a lot of anime art out there. Their backgrounds are brilliant. I mean, their backgrounds are painted by literally masters. But I just don't like the giant eyeballs. I don't like the spiky hair. I don't like the screaming. I don't like any of that kind of nonsense.
I swear, Attack on Titan. Watch an episode and just see. I swear, I will eat a shoe if you don't like the episode. It's so good. It really is.
Are we gonna do that on the next show?
I'll do it. I'll eat a shoe if you don't like it, but you can't say you didn't like it when you did, because then that's
my buddy
fair.
Dan and I just had he cooked me some hamburgers before, and I got the steak sauce. It's really good. I could mail you some of that steak sauce. You could pour it on a shoe and eat it right there on a show.
That's nice of you, but I think I'll just raw dog it if I have to, because
All right. Did we drill that one into the ground yet?
Well, what can I say? It's like I'll be regretting this in the morning. I want to thank you so much again for taking the time to talk to me today. It's been a blast. And definitely, I'm sorry I got you there. It's okay. You can let it out. Let it out. Hold it in. Better out than in.
Yes.
So I'm sorry. I made my guest blush as we're logging out. So, but it's been great. Thank you so much again. And,
thank you, Aaron. I had a great time, and sorry it took so long, but it turned out to be a really good interview. I'm very thankful.
Thank you. It was great. And I appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Brian Snoddy, what an interesting guy. And he sounds like he has a lot of people that trust him. I imagine that would be nice, working with somebody you can trust.
Are we doing this again?
You tried to kill me.
First of all, you can't prove that. That's the most important.
My lawyers think otherwise.
Do your lawyers know they have a delusional lunatic for a client?
Don't you gaslight me.
You're literally making up words now.
That's a colloquialism.
Again, not a real word. You're unhinged.
Well, you would be too if your clone tried to kill you.
No. You're my clone, buddy. Don't you forget that. But you know what? I don't need to be the host. You can be the host and light up all the gases you want. I quit. Well, thanks again to Brian for this time, and I'm so sorry for that outburst. And from this point on, there will be no more drama.
Bye-bye.